while they were traveling, I was staying with my grandma, who didn't speak English. And when I was something like 12 years old, my cousins, my American cousins, came to live in Ecuador, and I really wanted to be able to communicate with them and learn English. The problem is that I was too shy to ask them to talk with me and to teach me English, and for me to start even talking, even in Spanish, it was really difficult. So then I decided that I was going to do it by myself, and I was pretty good at self-studying. So my other cousin, Francisco, he was traveling to his trip, his interchange course in the US when he was 17 years old, and he gave me his books with cassettes to learn English, and it was a self-didactic method to learn English. So I decided it was pretty good to start using it, and I did it. I even remember nowadays what was the first lesson that went really fast and with British English, like let's play a guessing game. I'll think of a film star and you must guess who it is. And
it was British English, you said?
It was British English,
oh,
yes. And it was really hard for me in the beginning to understand teacher, water, and so many different words that were not completely pronounced. And but anyway, for example, with all those expressions like, oh, what a pity, I was learning English, and then I finally decided to talk to my cousins in English, and they were laughing at me because they told me, oh, you sound so British. And after that they decided that they were going to help me change my British accent to an American accent.
That was a major turning point, apparently, right?
Oh, yes, and I was about 13 years old at that time.
Yeah.
So the thing is that they started telling me, oh, instead of saying what a pity, say what a shame, which sounds much more natural.
It's American. These are American cousins, right?
Right, exactly. So the thing is that I did it, and
you were lucky to have these relatives in your family, because not everybody has that.
Exactly, and but on the other hand, they were teenagers as well as I was, but they were not shy at all. And so many times I felt frustrated because I couldn't speak as well as they did, and
that probably inspired you to keep learning more, you know.
Oh yes, yes, and I loved it. I liked it very much. I took it as a hobby to learn languages, and
languages. I caught that S there. Are you talking? Are you hinting that you studied a few other languages?
I started learning German and French also, but the mistake I made by that time, when I was about 19 years old and I decided to learn both languages simultaneously, was that somebody started talking to me in German and asking me something in German, and I would reply in French. So, or vice versa. And then I decided it was not a very good idea by that time to learn both languages at the same time. But I kept learning German, so my German level is a little higher than the French, and I'd really like to continue learning. At the present time I am learning Quechua because I need it.
Oh, still? Oh my God.
Right, and it's much more difficult than learning French or German.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What's the grammar like in Quechua? Is it simple or complex, the grammar?
It's very complicated.
You're kidding, really?
No, it's really complicated. So many things are similar to English according to the position of the subject, the adjective and the noun. And they differ from Spanish, and in so many other situations it is more like Spanish with the modifiers, and it's complicated. And I have found that so many of the words Quechua speakers, native Quechua speakers use are very similar to Chinese words. For instance, I didn't know that.
That's funny.
That's very interesting. I heard it in Freddie Eller's TV program I don't know, probably more than 10 years ago. And he traveled to China, and he came with this idea that there were so many terms that were very similar in Quechua and Chinese that I was really interested on that, and I started paying attention to that. Now there is this TV show for children on television that it's called Puka, And Puka is a little girl who is always dressed in red. But the thing I didn't know is that in Quechua, the color Puka is red. So, just to show you an example.
So the color red is the same in Quechua as in some Chinese, some Oriental language?
Yes.
That's a wild, that's more than a wild coincidence. I mean, there may be some factual, basis to that. Yeah.
No, and there are many other words I can remember. For instance, Quechua speakers say shungo, to the heart, but Chinese speakers call it shunko.
No,
which is very
that's too
similar.
much. That's too close for it to be like a coincidence. Exactly. It's too close.
Right.
It's too close.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Yeah, and Freddie Ellers mentioned something like, I don't know, more than 30 words as far as I can remember that were very similar. So it really caught my attention.
That's incredible. That's like, it's actually credible. It's not incredible, it's credible. Because what it does in my mind, it lends some scientific, factual support to the theory that native Latin American people, the Indians basically, are descendants of the Orientals that got to the American continent somehow. Some say through the Straits of Bering Strait in Alaska.
Yes.
Others say maybe by means of by the Pacific Ocean, some sort of vessels. That's one theory. But it just occurs to me right now as I'm speaking with you with my eyes closed to concentrate. Excuse me. Why assume that they came from over there? Maybe, I don't know, just as a wild brainstorming, maybe the people in China are descendants of the people in America. I don't know.
I have thought a lot about that, even before this situation about language and the connections or similarities between Chinese and Quechua. But I was also teaching Spanish to Japanese students, and it was really interesting for me to take them to the Central Bank Museum, which is a very nice museum.
In Cuenca, you taught Japanese people?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And the thing is that I took these Japanese students, this group of Japanese students, to show them all of the history of ethnography and art and even money and how it was developed in America and especially in Ecuador. And
to the Central Bank Museum, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And when we
they have a nice exhibit there, by the way, right?
Oh yes, they do. They do. And they have this poster with lots of impressions of many different peoples from different areas in Ecuador. So you can see their features, and you can see white people as well as black people, and you can see all of these ranges in the middle. And it's really interesting to see that the people who are deep inside the jungle of Ecuador, they do present this very Asian characteristics, like their cheekbones are really pronounced, their noses are like flattened, as well as their lips, and their eyes are also like Chinese eyes. And it's really interesting to see them and to see there is evidence that they are descendants from these other races. And this is
Asian races.
Yes, exactly. And,
yeah.
For me it was just something really interesting to research and to prove in a certain way what you just said about people coming either from the Bering Strait or from the Pacific islands that were before, and they used different vessels to come from one island to the other and finally get to America. But a very interesting thing I found is that these Japanese students of mine, they were really upset at the idea that I told them that probably the situation was that Ecuadorian people would descend from Asian people.
They were offended by that concept.
Exactly,
that's interesting.
exactly, because they were Japanese, not Chinese. And the thing is that, yes, Japanese consider themselves like a very pure race that is not mixed with other races, and it's
and
not
not
spread in
descending
America.
from Chinese either.
Exactly,
Probably.
exactly. As a matter of fact, I had that situation too. I had some students who were from China and other students who were from